This video has been brought to you by GoFiber hair fibers, which I'm also using in this video. So if you are interested in trying them out, make sure you visit gofiber.com, get a free sample of your choice and see if you like them. Hey, what's going on everybody? Matt here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about things I wish I knew about hair transplant clinics in Turkey. So if you are somebody who's considering a hair transplant in Turkey, then pay close attention to this video. It's going to be actually two parts. This is going to be the part 1 and part 2 is going to be coming later. Alright, the number one thing I wish I knew about Turkish hair transplant clinics back then, something which is happening extensively nowadays, I hope you guys will realize it after watching this video, is giving an impression of a doctor-based clinic when in reality it's not the case. It's an art of deception because they want to make the patient believe something that it's true about their practice or service, which is not the case in reality. Because if you ask their doctor if he's going to be the doctor who's going to perform the incisions, the extraction and implantation on you in particular, he's going to say, no, I have like 5, 6, 7 teams of technicians. They're going to do this. So what does it mean at the end of the day that this doctor may be ISHRS certified, that he has done maybe 5,000 or even 10,000 hair transplants, if he's not going to contribute directly with his expertise or with his experience to your hair transplant in particular? He's going to barely draw the hairline and say, okay, that's it for me. Let's go. I'm gonna send you to the team number 2. I assume if you're watching my videos, you want to properly educate yourself. You want to increase the likelihood of getting a good hair transplant result for your first time already. You don't want to risk it. So if you don't want to risk it, then you probably want to stick to the more safer options when the clinics only do like 1 or 2 transplants per day, have the same technicians who has been working for them for a long time already. They're having high surgeon involvement in the procedure. That means that the surgeon is doing at least the incision phase. If the surgeon is not doing the extraction himself, he's going to at least start the extraction just to show the technicians how the direction of your hair growth may change on the donor, because FUE is a blind procedure. You don't know how the hair kind of changes its growth underneath the skin. So even if it's growing out from the skin on the surface, you see the angle underneath the skin, it may start, curling a little bit, especially if you have curly hair. So by some cases the doctor starts doing the extraction just to show the technicians how the angles may change, depends on the different areas of the donor, so the transaction rate could be minimized. By transaction rate I mean the percentage of grafts that will be damaged or damaged literally during the extraction, because there is always going to be some transaction. Okay, so no doctor, no technician can promise you 0 transaction. Okay, don't believe that. Before I come to the second thing I wish I knew about hair transplant clinics in Turkey, I just want to mention that I think that the power of what technicians are allowed to do during the hair transplant just increased heavily, especially in Turkey, guys. The technicians were always there just for a very specific tasks, during the hair transplant procedures, being it dissecting the grafts by the FUT under the stereoscopic microscopes, be it the implantation phase by the FUE or FUT, but things like designing the hairline, things like doing the incisions, extraction even, these are things that should be done by the hair transplant doctor, hair transplant surgeon. What is happening in Turkey is that these technicians are kind of getting more and more involved in the whole procedure, and they are now suddenly also designing the hairline. Some of the technicians are involved in the donor area management, recreation of the frontal hairline, doing repair work. These are especially the areas which require like higher expertise. Okay, somebody like a hair transplant doctor, surgeon with a lot of experience, who should be doing these steps or parts of the procedure instead of technicians. So guys, very important, if you just ask the clinic that you intend on going to about who is going to do the incisions, implantation and extraction in your clinic, and if the answer is going to be a particular doctor, a name that you can research somewhere on the internet and you can find some credentials informations onto that name of the doctor, then it's good. And if you just also ask the second question, how many procedures do you do per day? If the answer is going to be like one or two, like usually one big procedure or two small ones, if this is going to be the answer, then you're probably on a good track, okay? You're probably researching already a good clinic. You still need to do some things and some other steps which you need to research just to make sure that the clinic also has ethical and good practice and good protocols, but you should be fine, okay? All right, guys, the second thing I wish I knew about hair transplant clinics in Turkey is that they're not entirely honest about the number of grafts extracted and implanted. Not always, okay? Some of them are, but not all of them. I also made this video on one patient who got 2,800 grafts extracted and implanted, and it didn't look like that. He came to me 5 months after his procedure and he was like, Matt, this is not dense. Something must have gone wrong here, okay? And I was like, hey, let me just send me some of the immediate post-op photos so I can take a look at it. And he had some high resolution ones, so I literally started to count the grafts, and I didn't come on to 2,800, but it was like something around 2,000 at most, okay? So this is what happens sometimes by Turkish hair transplant clinics. It can happen everywhere in the world, honestly, but in Turkey it's somehow more frequent because Turkey is the country with most hair transplants being performed on a yearly basis, so it kind of also increases the likelihood that some of the guys will be cheated on, unfortunately. But another thing, what's happening in Turkey in terms of deceiving guys and making them feel like they get a even more dense looking result than they actually get, is a technique called graft splitting. Now, that's why you also see many Turkish hair transplant results of 5,000 and 6,000 grafts, FUE, transplanted sometimes in one day, and you are like, wow, how is that even possible? Well, if you extract 5,000 or 6,000 grafts from an average donor area, or even above average donor area, 6,000 grafts without splitting them, so you just extract, no matter if it's double, triple, you just keep extracting without splitting. You cannot even extract like 4,000-5,000 grafts without over harvesting, without damaging the donor. So how come some of these guys get 6,000 FUE? If you get 6,000 grafts, there is no way that the hair per graft average will be high enough to provide you with sufficient density and coverage after the transplant, okay? So it cannot make you a Norwood 1 after you had been Norwood 6 previously, just because you get 6,000 grafts. These 6,000 grafts, you have to think like how many of these 6,000s will be singles, doubles, and triples and quads, and this will give you a better idea of how dense the result will actually be, not the grafts themselves, okay? Now, we shouldn't also forget that by splitting the grafts too much, like doing it by hundreds of follicles, you can increase the transaction rate, because you're literally like trying to transect a double graft into single grafts. And sometimes if it's being done with a micromotor, it's being done very fast, it's being done by unskilled technicians, again with motor, which is causing additional rotation, it can increase the transaction rate, okay? Which means the graft will get damaged, it will get destroyed, okay? The technique graft splitting should be used in moderation to create a more natural distribution, especially on the hairline and temples, where some of the doubles and triples could be split into singles and implanted on these areas in a higher densities to create a more natural look. So that's the goal of graft splitting, not to misuse or abuse this technique and split the grafts like hundreds of times just to make the patient believe that he's going to get like a larger number of grafts, which will lead in better density, which is not going to be the case, because the hair per graft average ratio will decrease. The number of hairs coming from one graft on average will decrease the ratio, and this is the thing that kind of determines how good or how dense your hair transplant result will actually be, not the number of grafts transplanted, but number of hairs transplanted. That's why it's called hair transplant and not graft transplant. So you shouldn't be paying attention too much to how many grafts will be transplanted without even knowing your hair per graft average approximately. Of course, it can be estimated. The thing number 3 I wish I knew about hair transplant clinics in Turkey is their ability to create artificial social proof in terms of reviews and testimonials online, which are very hard to prove whether they are fake or not. Most likely they are fake. They can be not only portrayed on their websites, but on the websites like Trustpilot, Proven Expert, and different portals where you can submit a review on a service as a consumer. Also Google reviews. Bad thing about that is that literally anybody with email address can submit a review on these websites. They're not really like filtering people out who really did get a transplant with the clinic and people who did not. Literally everybody can just submit a review on their service. So that kind of makes me skeptical about the credibility of these reviews, number 1. Number 2, most of these testimonials are being submitted immediately after the procedure and are mainly describing the hair transplant experience itself, okay? Since Turkey is a country heavily focused on medical tourism, they have this system down, okay? And this is usually a thing that is being described in these reviews and testimonials online the most, like how comfortable it was, a wonderful experience, the staff was good, they seemed like they knew what they were doing, everything looked so professional. Most of their reviews are also describing this experience instead of describing the end result after 6 or 12 months. You rarely see reviews and testimonials where guys are describing the end result. They're mainly describing the service, the experience itself. Clearly it doesn't have anything to do with the quality of their service, of course. It's mainly shows like the quality of the hair transplant experience itself, but it's not the quality of the end result, okay? Reviews rarely go as deep as, you know, what types of tools the doctor used, how the donor area management was. These reviews never go as deep as that. They just superficially describe the experience overall. It's very emotional. It's like, wow, now I will have hair. I did such confident thing or step in my life and now I feel good. And this is like just blah blah blah. For me, as a guy who really likes to go into detail when it comes down to researching a hair transplant clinic, this doesn't mean much, of course. So yeah, be careful of that. This is the third thing, of course, that I wish I knew about Turkish clinics. Here's also where I would like to do a cut in this video. I'm going to continue. I'm going to go on with another things I wish I knew about Turkish hair transplant clinics. I think 3 or 4 more of them in the next video, the number 2. So make sure you stay tuned. For all of you guys who are interested in a hair transplant, maybe even Turkey, maybe anywhere in the world, you need some suggestions on reliable hair transplant doctors. Maybe you are at the very beginning of your hair transplant research and you need my assistance throughout the whole hair transplant research. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing. I provide such advice in my consultations. So if you are interested, make sure you apply for a consultation on www.mattdominance.com/mentoring. Also, for guys who already maybe found some doctors, you think like this doctor may be really good and you need like my review or need to hear my opinion, you'd like to know what I think about that, what would I do in your case, that's completely fine. We can also do it in a consultation. So make sure you apply also. The part number 2 is going to be coming soon. In case it already came out, I'm going to link it here somewhere, okay? So you can click it and keep watching the part 2. Take care, guys.